And we're back. Hello, everybody. This is Jim Grisanzio from the Oracle Groundbreakers team. 2 more interviews to go, maybe 3, from Code One in San Francisco. And I'm here with my good friend that I can never say his name properly, Geertjan Wielenga.
Geertjan Wielenga.
Geertjan Wielenga.
Very good.
Is it perfect?
Sure.
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Okay. So, for the last 3 years, we've been doing like a NetBeans update.
That's right.
And one of the reasons why I always like talking to you is because when I joined Sun in 2000, right, in the actually the early summer of 2000, I didn't know what open source was or anything like that, and then we bought, Sun bought, NetBeans, and then went through the open source process. And I remember going to the O'Reilly OSCON event, and that's where I started meeting some of you guys at back then. So you were the first project that I got involved with.
That's great.
And so it was.
And look where you're now.
And look at me now. Yeah. So yeah, there's been a lot of projects in between. But anyway, it was what I was always very, very impressed with the NetBeans engineers is that they were really strong guys, very spunky, very
Passionate.
outgoing. And very interesting crowd, right?
Yes.
So obviously, fast forward all these years now, NetBeans is now a part of the Apache Software Foundation, right?
Right.
So let's give a NetBeans update. This is the state of NetBeans year 3, right? We're going to do this every year, as long as we're here.
Same time, same place.
Same time. So so the process is done. You guys are actually in now, right?
Well, it's never really done. It's true that the biggest step forward over the past months, over the past year definitely, is that we're now a top-level project in Apache. We've crossed all the hurdles, we've voted, we've got the donations, we have a solid, stable community, solid, stable project, and the Apache Software Foundation rewards that in a sense by agreeing to allow a project to be a top-level project, which means it has the official Apache stamp on it, and it's an official Apache project. Mm-hmm. And everywhere where it says incubator, we remove that because we're no longer in the purgatory that I explained last year, but we are now in the heaven that is the Apache Foundation itself, enabling us to develop as a community and develop the project further. So that's the biggest step. 2 or 3 months ago, this happened, and we're now an official top-level Apache project.
Now, one of the things you said, I think it was last year, is you described to me, and I wasn't aware of the size of the code base. Mm. This migration is actually non-trivial. I mean, it was huge code base, right?
It's not even complete yet. That's the other thing. So just because we are now a top-level project doesn't mean that the donation process is over. So it just means really that the Apache Foundation states publicly that we recognize this community as following our standards and our approach the Apache way, mm-hmm. and is working together well. It doesn't necessarily even say anything about the project as such, but it says about the community that we're working together in the way that Apache would expect and hope.
Right.
But the donation process continues. So we've now had 3 donations, so 3 sets of zip files with lots of code that has gone through the auditing process in Oracle and that is now part of Apache. The most recent one being several months ago, whereby Java EE is now also integrated into Apache NetBeans. So the Java EE parts of NetBeans. So the first donation was focused on the platform mostly, and then there was a second donation, various things, and the third donation was focused on Java EE. And now we're working actually on the 4th donation, which is the C++ features. So that's really the last big donation, the last big set of features. But then there's going to be smaller ones. So for example, there's the a repository with modules contributed by the community to NetBeans in Oracle, whereby they signed the Oracle license agreement. And now those different modules, the ones that we want to continue working on, need to be donated to Apache, as well as some community repositories, maybe the UML support, which was in a separate repository, and the Ruby support. So there's more coming, basically.
So so I guess my question here is, how do you continue working when all these migrations are happening?
Right.
First, and second, why does it take so long?
Right.
Or actually, is that an inappropriate question?
No.
Is this just a normal process?
Well, so the first question was, how do we continue working
How
while
do
the
you continue
migrations?
working?
Well,
Yeah.
it's because NetBeans is modular. So we are able to release NetBeans with what there is right now, which is a full-featured Java SE, Java EE IDE, as well as an HTML IDE, a JavaScript IDE, a PHP IDE. Those are all released as what we have now in Apache NetBeans. So we can continue working on that and releasing those modules because that's a complete whole, complete product. But at the same time, so this is because it's modular, we can work on the donation of the remaining parts that haven't been donated yet, that are being worked on in Oracle. So the question is, why is it taking so long? I would say, why is it going so fast? Potentially.
Actually, I think you mentioned that last year, and it was very, very surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there aren't hundreds of people in Oracle working on this auditing process. It's a small group of people, and what the auditing process consists of is, quite simply, Oracle obviously can't donate code to anywhere, to Apache or to whoever, that doesn't really belong to Oracle. So over the years, bits of code have been copied from Stack Overflow.
Okay.
Icons have been taken from various places.
Right.
We need to be sure, as Oracle, that we're giving stuff that actually belongs to us.
All right. We went through that with Open Solaris as well, and that took about a year.
This is taking years now. We started the process in October 2016. And we are able to keep going and keep releasing while we're doing this auditing. So there's people in Oracle, and we have weekly meetings about the status and what's going on, and what the current holdup is, and what things we need to keep flagging and figuring out. So this weekly meeting we have in Oracle is partly about that, about the auditing process, but also Oracle has full-time employees working on NetBeans. Now, in particular, Oracle's commitment to NetBeans and Apache is the support in NetBeans for Java. So the Java organization in Oracle has full-time employees. They're in the India office, the NetBeans India Development Center, or the India Development Center has a group of people working on NetBeans.
Right.
Specifically to provide support for the new Java language features. So when JDK 11, 12, 13, whatever comes out, there's new language features, such as a good example, text block support in JDK 13. This is a really nice thing whereby you can have multi-lines of a string, and without concatenating them, without having plus and backslashes and ends and so on, you can have instead 3 quotation marks at the start and 3 quotation marks at the end, and anything between that is treated as a string. So you could have a long piece of HTML, for example, without all these string concatenations at the end. Now in NetBeans, thanks to the IDC team in India, there is the possibility of converting from the one form to the other. So there's a hint in the editor. And so if you're running NetBeans on JDK, if you're running the project on JDK 13, and if you have the enable preview settings set, because these are preview features from the JDK, then the NetBeans Java editor picks up, hey, you're making use of a concatenated string. Don't you want this to be a text block? And you get a hint, and then NetBeans will automatically convert that. And you can go through your whole code base with the NetBeans analyzers to pick out all the places that could be converted. So this is a lot of work.
Right.
And there's this team in India that works on that, together with the people in the NetBeans community. So any organization can have people involved officially or unofficially, or working on their own, or whatever form, on Apache together, and Oracle has that commitment as well.
Okay, so you mentioned India. What about Prague? Is there anybody
in Prague, there's a number of people from different projects and organizations in Oracle who are also continuing to work on NetBeans. So, for example, Jaroslav Tulach, the founder of NetBeans, is still working on NetBeans from within the GraalVM organization, because GraalVM needs IDE support. So you need to be able to debug the work you do with GraalVM, the language and the scripts and so on that you write there.
Right.
And so you can do that in NetBeans, thanks to the integration that the people in the Prague office working on GraalVM do. And another example is Jan Lahoda. He's in the Java organization. He's also in Prague, and he's also contributing a lot with all the knowledge he has over many years to the NetBeans project. So there's all kinds of people in different organizations in Oracle who continue to work very actively on NetBeans. And in fact, because we're in Apache, we have all our code on GitHub. So on GitHub, you can see who the contributors to our project are. And if you look there, there's I don't know, dozens of people working on NetBeans actively. But if you look at who the top 10 people are who are contributing to NetBeans, you find that 6 of those 10 are non-Oracle people, and 4
Right.
of those 10 are Oracle people.
Right.
So that's a really healthy, a sign of health of the contributions coming in to Apache NetBeans.
Okay, so you mentioned this is right now is the third major contribution,
Yeah.
and there's going to be at least
The fourth one is coming,
fourth
and
one's
there'll
coming,
be at
and
least a
there's-
fifth, maybe a sixth.
Okay.
It may happen that we find that we forgot to donate some module or something that people really care about,
Right.
and then we do smaller donations. But
Right.
after this, after the fourth and fifth one, the donations will be significantly smaller, and therefore they'll be more quickly in completion of that process.
Will those future donations take place within the year, or are we still talking a multi-year process?
I think I would say within a year, sure.
Within a year,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, by
So-
this time next year, it should all be done. Really.
Okay, so that'll be the fourth. That'll be the fourth time
Yes,
we do
exactly,
this.
exactly.
So maybe next year we'll be done.
Yes.
But the question I wanted to ask is, okay, so the Apache Software Foundation has sort of stamped it,
Yes.
in terms of processes and
Yes.
being a part of the foundation. What's the reaction been from the general community, of general NetBeans community?
It's been very positive.
Just on Twitter, it sounds very, very positive.
Yes, yes. It's been very positive. And what I find one of the most positive signals is to see organizations now contributing. So, big shout out to Payara, because there has always been a Payara plugin on the NetBeans plugin portal. But now the Payara team have contributed that to the Apache NetBeans code base. So they're working on that support within within the core of Apache NetBeans itself. So it's simply in GitHub. So like there is Glassfish support and Tomcat support, there is now also Payara support. And we have Wildfly still as a plugin, but potentially that could happen as well, that the Red Hat developers simply put that into the GitHub repository and work together with the community on it there. It's a much more open way of working together within GitHub, within the same repository, rather than on all kinds of separate plugins with different repositories in place and so on. So NetBeans is really becoming a garden that we tend together. That's really how I see it. And that garden is growing, and we're planting more and more flowers and trees and stuff in there. But we need people to tend it and to maintain it and to debug things and to add new features. And gradually together we can really bring this project forward together.
I'm also interested in hearing a little bit about the governance processes, the development methodologies before and after.
Yes.
Okay. Obviously it's changed, right?
Yes.
It's evolved now that you're in the Apache Software Foundation. How have the governance models changed?
Well, I think that is the best aspect of Apache, aside from all the resources they give you, but the fact that they give you an off-the-shelf governance model. If you were not in Apache, if you were simply outside of Oracle, we would have to figure out how do we make decisions.
Right.
That's been decided by
and that's
Apache.
really serious.
That's not easy.
It's not easy
We don't have
at
to
all.
discuss anything, it's already there. And if someone doesn't like it, we say, well, look, this is the Apache way. We are an Apache.
Right.
So this is wonderful. And so
and the community took to that right away.
yes, and it's established. Apache Maven, Apache Groovy. There's so many Apache projects that work wonderfully. Definitely Maven, Groovy. There's so many more. It's an established set of best practices for how to work together as a community.
Right.
So every Apache project has something called a project management committee, and the people in that committee vote amongst themselves on a private mailing list for other people that they see coming up to join in that body. And in addition to that, there are committers. And so far, there's a kind of almost 100% overlap that we have between committers and PMC members. But as we see people becoming more and more active and contributing code, we say to them, hey, after we vote for that amongst ourselves, we discuss, hey, would this person be a good fit? Are they behaving in an Apache way within the community? Then we approach them and say, hey, we've discussed this, would you like to join? Which gives them commit rights. So on GitHub, they can then merge their and other pull requests.
Right.
Which is a big step forward, which then gets them more involved and brings them closer into the process. And before we were in Apache, we were in Oracle, so we didn't have these off-the-shelf open governance rules and standards and so on. It was all decided within Oracle, so it was purely a corporate structure. But at the same time, we wanted to get people involved. We wanted to get people from outside. We kept kind of more or less saying, look, we are good people, and this is a good project. Why don't you want to give us code? But it ended up being basically giving Oracle code versus now giving Apache code. And Apache is a much stronger brand for those purposes than a particular corporation
exactly.
ever is going to be.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest benefit of being an Apache.
Cool. Well, this is really exciting to hear this. It's huge progress. I've been watching it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And is there anything have we left out?
Well, so yes, I have. Very important. Through community discussion, we've come up with a quarterly release cycle, something we've never had. I mean, there were never time-based releases.
Actually, that was related to the development methodology, sort of.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
So.
But I think aside from becoming a top-level Apache project, and aside from the new features, the many new features that have come in, for example, direct Payara support without plugins, just built in. The other really big development is this quarterly release cycle. So this was proposed by one of the PMC committers. His name is Neil C. Smith. He has a wonderful project called Praxis Live, praxislive.org, based on top of NetBeans, a multimedia project. Check it out. He suggested, why don't we go for a quarterly release cycle and a predictable, based on a particular date.
Right.
So we can now see that. For years ahead, on what date we will be released. So I can predict 10 years from now on what date 10 years from now we will release, or at least we will aim to release. So we've had the first of these releases. 11.1 was the first of these. This was in April, I believe, and we now have had the feature freeze for 11.2. Just in the last week. In October we'll be releasing 11.2, in January 11.3, and in April 12. So every year we will have one major release, which is the LTS release, and all the other releases between the major releases are these minor, basically feature update releases. So in this way we can try out and test new features as they come into the minor releases.
Right.
And once we get to the major release, we can really be sure this is solid. And we're also going to be focusing the NetCat program, so the NetBeans Community Acceptance Testing program, purely on those LTS releases. So we won't have to ask people every 3 months or so, hey, we have a new release coming out, will you try it out? Rather than that, we'll ask it once per year, which is much more likely that we'll get people to be actively involved in that process. Right. So now we have a predictable release schedule. And
now, is that fully implemented?
Yes, fully implemented in the sense that 11.1 has been released on schedule, and now we're going to 11.2.
Okay, so
per release we're going to try and follow that schedule. Right. And also the nice thing is, within Oracle, the whole release process was totally opaque. And here, in Apache, everything is open and visible. Right. And we've had Neil doing the releases for a few releases now, and we've had other people doing Laszlo Kishomi, fantastic release manager, Emilian Bode. So we've already had 3 community release managers over the past 2 years, where before everything was done by one mysterious person in Oracle in Prague. And if that person got run over by a bus, we wouldn't have known what to do, because that particular person knew everything, all the scripts, all the mysterious stuff, and it was completely opaque. Now everything is clear, and anyone can pick up from what Neil has built up now. And what we also want to do is have a kind of a shadowing process, so that when a release manager starts working on a release, that we have the next release manager working with that release manager, so that they can take it over in the next release cycle. Right. So all these things are possible now that we are in Apache.
Yeah. Well, Geertjan, thank you very much for the update. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
We need to make this an annual event.
Absolutely.
For NetBeans.
It's a annual release cycle.
Annual NetBeans, State of NetBeans.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just personal with me, because those are the developers that really taught me about open source.
That's right. So many people are the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone who's come in touch with NetBeans is very positive and optimistic, and always talks positively about it, and always asking how are things going and how can we get involved. It's got a really good vibe around it, because the community is strong, which is something that Sun and Oracle have enabled.
Right.
Through all these years of being in Sun and Oracle, being in these stable environments, being within corporations, have enabled us to quietly build up this community, which we are now benefiting from.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you
We'll
very
see you
much.
this time next year.
This time next year.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We're going to end this for now. We got 2 more interviews here from Code One in San Francisco. So stay tuned. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.